Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we're going to be talking about Star Wars Outlaws. It is finally here, and we'll be previewing what to expect from the new game. And we'll continue to break down the fallout from the cancellation of the Acolyte. And as always, we'll be answering your burning questions from hashtag Ask the SWU at the last segment of the show. My name is Chris, and joining me, that's right, he's back. It is Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, Hannah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I was thinking about it before the show. I haven't done this show from this studio in, I'm going to say 6 weeks. I think the last time I was in here was mid-July, and it is the second last day of August that we're recording this. Somehow I managed to go almost, over a month without recording from this space and without there being like another strike or something. And look, I know there have been, I've popped up here and there on the show, being nearly arrested by stormtroopers, and when we had that weird hotel room and during San Diego Comic-Con, all that stuff. But it's nice to properly be back. And naturally, I came back for what I want to talk about and what you all want me to talk about, which is video games, because I know everything about Star Wars video games. I have mad opinions about them. I play them all. I just pretend I don't. So I'm excited to give my in-depth, comprehensive, and exclusive review of Outlaws, which I've played all of. I've played every minute of it. I've explored every inch
please.
Of those friggin' maps. And boy, I did not see that coming. And those
are a mockery, Dominic Jones. You mockery of a man. How dare you?
It's going to be a great show.
Oh my gosh, that is right. It is Dom Malarkey Jones.
That's me. That's what they call me.
That's you now. All right.
Oh my goodness. Also joining us, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? It's good to have the whole crew back. Freaking finally, it's been
so
a while. Okay,
I
have some of you or things.
I've
been here the whole time. For the record, just
that's true.
The whole time.
It's been alive the whole time.
Ben hasn't missed a show, and the rest of us are just like, we'll be here. We won't.
I mean, that might change. I think I've earned a few days off now, so who knows? You never know when I might just disappear.
People don't know this, but people need to know this, that the fact that that Ben has been here for all the shows and the rest of us hasn't, has become like a bit in our group chat for the last 2 weeks, where Ben will ask us who is going to be on this show, and everyone pretends like they're not going to be there before they show up.
Permanent sarcasm in the chat.
And they're all trolling me, and it came from like this moment, and I said it the other time that the week that it actually happened. This is not a joke. I messaged everyone the night before the show. I'm like, okay, who's gonna be there? And each one of these people, roll call goes, not gonna be there. I just burst out laughing, and so I'm like, this is hilarious that we have a show in less than 24 hours. And I'm the only one there.
You burst out in tears.
That was, and he laughed so hard he started crying. I think it's probably what
sometimes
happens.
you just have to You just have to laugh.
Oh man, amazing. Also joining us, the other face you hear, that other. Wait, did I say face you hear? That other face you see.
That other face you hear, and that
my
voice
face.
you see.
Sometimes my facial expressions are very loud sometimes, so I understand.
Yes, the face that you hear and the voice that you see right now, all the way from the Raeside, it's Hannah.
G'day there. Great to be back. Another week. Lovely to have the boyos back, and we're all together like a beautiful family. It's not long before we start ripping each other to shreds again. We've already started. I've already started a new job, so
yeah, really. It took all of what 2 minutes. It took the intro and right back at me for my video game takes. Or lack thereof.
Yes. Well, despite Dom's putrid sarcasm towards Star Wars gaming, I have myself truthfully been playing Outlaws for the past week and a bit.
I don't believe you.
How dare? Oh, this is got to be this kind of show. But I'm super excited to talk about it. I have so many thoughts and can't wait to share. It's going to be very good.
Hannah, what's it like knowing things before other people? Like, what's it like being like, oh, I got access, and the rest of you peasants have not played the game?
It feels like the godlike.
Wow,
that's probably the best way to describe it.
What's the tallest?
Cool.
What's the tallest mountain in Australia?
Ayers Rock.
Oh god, this is a good question. I think it's called Mount Isa. No. Sorry, Mount Kosciuszko.
All right, well, get off of Mount Kosciuszko. Come back down here with us mere mortals.
I know, peasants playing it on the release day. Oh gosh, I don't know how it feels. No, it feels fantastic. Yes, it was quite an intense feeling to like keep it all in, to be honest. But in saying that, just a brief note as you asked that question, it was actually really refreshing to experience something fully Star Wars, that Star Wars media that hundreds of thousands of people will talk about, have an opinion on. It'll be talked about everywhere, and it not be at that point yet, but you're experiencing it. It's really bizarre. It's really, really bizarre, but in a great way. It was so refreshing because I could just fully immerse myself in what was happening. And, if I jump on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or anything at the end of the night, I'm not inundated with other people's opinions about it. I'm not inundated with all the talk about it. So it was quite an interesting experience to just absorb something just myself and not talk about it. It was really cool. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool. Now, believe it or not, there was a time when I played a Star Wars video game before like the rest of the world. Yeah. It was Star Wars Battlefront 2015.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes, Chris and I played it during San Diego Comic-Con a couple of months before it came out. And if in the years since then, Chris, you've actually become like a proper gamer who knows how to play video games and can like compete and actually do things. At the time, it was like one of those big, like, I don't know, 20 versus 20, 50 versus 50, whatever. And I'm pretty sure we were the two lowest scorers in the entire game. Definitely. We were like bottom of the table. But it was fun. It was cool. I think in that moment, I realized that game wasn't going to be what everybody wanted it to be. But it was still fun to play, and it was fun to do at Comic-Con 9 years ago, if you can believe that, too. God. Yeah. Grapple with that one there, Chris. Oh, my God. Dang. Anyways, let's get into Outlaws stuff in just a sec. But first, Chris, plug some stuff so we can actually dive into things.
It's time for the fastest 2 minutes in podcasting. If you're watching on YouTube, punch that subscribe button, Chewy. You can super chat with us during the live show. If you don't watch us live, you can still support us by becoming a channel member. In addition to subscribing on YouTube, if you're listening to the show, you can also subscribe on your favorite podcast apps. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and many, many more. Make sure you check out our Discord. We've got watch parties, game nights, lots of fun stuff. The link is in the description in the show notes, and make sure you follow us on Threads at the SWU. It's the only social media account that we are on. And also check out all the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including the Raeside Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and more. And also check out our friends over at Star Wars Culture.
Can I just say I was on Ion Cannon this week. I filled in for Matthew, and Joel and I had a terrific discussion about how trilogies work. It was an excellent conversation. Do check it out. Very good time.
Check it out.
All right, let's get into things. We are a couple hours away from the release of Star Wars Outlaws, the new video game from Ubisoft and Lucasfilm Games. And we could try and, Chris Ben and I could try and say things about it, but nobody cares about that. Hannah, over to you. You have played this game.
Mm-hmm.
You know what it's like. You have some experience with it. Tell us about it. Is it good? Is it fun? Does it live up to the hype that we've been feeling building for the last 2 years?
For sure. I think what I'll start with is talking about just what the game is about and what it's achieving and the storyline, and then I'll go into some critiques of the game myself. It was always prefaced as this bounty hunter scoundrel game, and it's to some that might not seem like as a compelling, story point to really delve into, but this game is so in depth. If you want to be that like Han Solo, you want to be that just badass kind of character running through Star Wars planets, cantinas, siding with people, it hits that nerve so well and so good. And there's a very, very in-depth system between working with the syndicates, which is a really cool element of Star Wars. A lot of, obviously Star Wars media is based around Jedi and Sith, but this, they've really said, we don't want to deal with any of that. We don't want to talk about anything like that. We're just getting into the underworld element of Star Wars, which they've done very well, in my opinion. There's the four main syndicates in the story that are just really, really well thought out into the game. We got the Pikes, which are classic. I feel like they're Clone Wars fans were really passionate about Pikes. The Pikes, Crimson Dawn, which is really great because obviously that's a group and a syndicate that has been around in media for a little while now. So it's always great to see them, and coming into a video game is really cool. With Kira as head of that clan, there's a new clan that they made for the game, the Ishiga clan, which is a native clan to the planet Kijimi. You would have seen in Rise of Skywalker, which is very cool.
Yeah.
And obviously the Hutts as well, but that is in the extended edition of the game. Gold extra deluxe special, whatever it's called. I never know. I can never get the titles of that.
Sounds like you're ordering a pizza. Yeah, give me an extra deluxe with that. Give me the Jabba size
special.
Pizza the Hut, yes.
Pizza the Hut. Oh my god. So those syndicates, it's really cool. So unlike a Battlefront 2 campaign or Battlefront campaign or the Star Wars Jedi games, Fallen Order and Survivor, unlike those games, this game is very much leaning into the open world, bit more choose your own adventure. So yes, there is a main story that you can kind of step along with, but it's not really locking you out of other opportunities if you don't want to really go to that planet yet and you want to, I want to, upgrade my speeder so I can go get that bounty hunter that this person told me to do. You can go do that and you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. So it's really quite open with the direction of the game of these quests, they call them, which are essentially tasks and missions that you'll need to go intercept a cargo shipment, landing over here on Tatooine, or you got to go collect this bounty who's working for the Empire. And it's really just, again, a fantastic mission based, doing these bounty hunter-esque things. And it feels good. You just get to, we're past 5 minutes of the show. You just get to shoot shit up, essentially, as a bounty hunter. And that feels really good. As a deep Star Wars fan, really just a fantastic energy and aesthetic to the game.
Now, I've been rewatching the 4-hour takedown of the Galactic Star Cruiser. And so my question is, how many of these side quests and missions involve scanning QR codes? Because I'm led to believe that's all that the Star Wars experience is.
Yeah, like it's a Star Wars equivalent of QR codes. That is a big element of the game. It is
All
like
right.
100%.
All right.
But yeah, that's a bit of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So how have you been enjoying it? Like you've been playing around, you've yet to experience being a bounty hunter, which okay, it's not being a Jedi, but it's still pretty freaking cool. I think here at at the Underworld, I think we're required to say that. What have you thought of the story, of the gameplay, of the experience altogether? How well do those mechanics that you've been describing, how well do they work in terms of entertaining you?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, I have found an interesting sort of balance of what's going on with this game, because if you've been following along with the game a little bit online and hearing the reviews and what people are saying, it is basically Geonosis, not the planet. It's because it's got a lot of bugs on it. That's pretty much this game, because it sure does have quite a lot of bugs. I played about 20 hours with not too many issues. Maybe it's just some little glitches of audio here and there. Nothing that really hindered my playing. But I am actually at a point at the minute that there's a big bug, a known bug to Ubisoft in a certain mission, that you can't enter into the next room or through this door for some other reason, and they're yet to put a patch on to fix that. So there's just this mission, this side of the game that I can't actually continue with at the moment. And a similar sort of bug with utilizing my companion in the game, Nyx, that it won't allow me to do that. So that's another bug that's appearing. So I don't want that to dampen, but I also just I don't want to shy away from this. This game is having some problems, and it's very talked about at the minute. I think it is hindering my I think joy of the game, because on the flip side, the actual just running around and trying to choose what you do, choosing what syndicate you want to befriend and be part, have a good reputation with, it's just so fun, and I've just had such a blast, just sinking and immersing myself into that story. Kay Vess's story, the main character you play as, is not as bold as, I guess, the Jedi Fallen Order games, where Cal Kestis was this, he made a name for himself, and even if you didn't play the game, you probably know his name, and it became this big story about his journey as a Jedi. Where Kay Vess is a lot more mild of a storyline. She just has this very standard, just trying to make her way through the galaxy sort of energy. But I think that I'm saying it's mild in a positive way, because I think it really allowed you to explore, kind of your own personality into her character, in terms of whether you want to just betray everyone and be really criminal and be the best criminal and double cross everybody, or if you want to go a certain way, really befriend a certain syndicate and all these kinds of things. So Kay Vess's story is not very in depth, but I think that actually lends to the enjoyment for me of the game. Because again, it just hits that itch of just running around. You talk to a weak way, and he tells you, look at the mechanic over there, and it's a Twi'lek, and you're like, hey, where are the credits? And it's oh, I'll get some steel. I don't know. It's very cool. I like it. But in saying this, I've had such a fun time immersing myself. But I absolutely not shying away that there's a bunch of bugs in this game, and a lot of glitches. And it's hard for me to judge what that means, because I'm a Star Wars fan more than I am a gaming fan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough about how actual gaming engineering works. I just know the terminal. I know bugs. I know patches. I know they can, do things like that. But I know Ubisoft have an interesting reputation, and they are aware of a lot of the bugs, and I would imagine that they're doing their best to fix up things in the games. But I mean, me personally, I saw other people having a lot worse issues than me. Okay. for me personally, as much as I was enjoying the game, but then I had just these random bugs that kind of hindered the game a little bit. So a little bit disappointing. It's a little bit to be expected with new games, especially on release, but they're pretty big bugs and they're kind of frequent. So yeah, take from that what you will.
I feel like this is a familiar story. Like I feel like every big game that comes out, I hear this sort of comes up, and I don't know if it's just, do we expect too much from video games at this point? Are they like almost, we expect them to be so good that they can't actually make them that good, and maybe we need to scale them back a little bit in terms of, I don't know. I don't need photo real graphics, but then again, I don't play, so who cares what I think?
I think the issue is they only have so much budget to pay people to test the game. Because they basically, the first, thing that happens after they've, worked on it internally is that they bring in people that they pay to just play through the game and just do reports of like every single problem that they have. And they can use that to also reshape certain things about the experience that people aren't liking. They can do A/B testing and figure out like, what do people like better, this or that. And so, but it's difficult because, they only have so much of a budget for that. And so it's not really till that mass release happens and everybody's playing it that like every possible error and problem and issue comes up. And it's really just expected for the first week or two of these big releases. I mean, I remember Cyberpunk was one of the most notorious ones. Like that one had so many issues that they had to grind through for the first few weeks to get the game really working the way that it should. So yeah, if you're part of the first week or 2 weeks, month of playing a major game like this, kind of expect to be a beta tester in a sense for it. It's just how it goes.
Is there an element with games, especially a Star Wars game or a big franchise game, that the similar thing that they do with the movies where they don't show them to test audiences because they want to protect spoilers, they want to protect this and that, because like I know Ryan Johnson has talked in the past about that was a tool he really felt was missing when he was making The Last Jedi compared to his experience making, a Loop or Knives Out. And, I think sometimes you can feel that in the Star Wars movies. I wonder, if for Star Wars or these other like franchise games where the story is a big factor in it, it's from what you're saying, Chris, it sounds like probably not, but I can't help but wonder if maybe that is a little sign.
No, they sign. I think it's just budgetary restrictions because they sign ridiculous NDAs. I mean,
but we know nobody's ever broken an NDA before,
right? It's true.
I mean, we didn't know that Han Solo died in The Force Awakens months,
right?
months
no,
in
I mean
advance.
it's different. It's different, yeah. When you have just like a few dozen testers coming in and playing the game versus thousands of people knowing about a production. But I mean, I'll give an example of this. So, for example, there was a very big spoiler, which normally I would say, but I'm not going to say because now it's a TV show and the spoiler is going to happen again for people that don't know the game. But there's a very big spoiler at the beginning of The Last of Us 2, the sequel game to The Last of Us. And I know that there were beta testers or alpha testers, even people that tested some of the early versions of the game that knew what that spoiler was. And no one knew. That was not leaked. No one knew. So when this thing happened, that happened when The Last of Us 2 came out. It caused this tidal wave on the internet of people freaking out over this one thing happening. And they were able to keep that secret down, even though they were able to use people to test the game. So I'm assuming that, just how it was for The Last of Us, it's the case for Star Wars too. They're able to keep these things under wrap by making sure that it's professionals going in who, kind of have a career testing games and have a resume testing games. And it's not just random people. You have to kind of know somebody or already be in that industry to do something like that.
I also think the factor of like a video games movies are obviously different mediums, and you can't do a test audience on a movie and only show them part of the movie. That's part of the movie. If you're taking like a scene out because of a spoiler, that kind of ruins the experience and could affect their viewing experience, as opposed to a video game where you a lot of this stuff just has to do with basic gameplay that, you know, someone could just play the game or play most of the game and they leave certain parts out and just say, hey, you can't play that, or just like code it off and still have like at least the full gaming experience, knowing that, you know, parts of the thing. So I'm assuming stuff like that happens. I don't know, but obviously there's different ways to go about it than just being like, sign an NDA, don't say anything.
Hannah, in the chat, people are wondering what console, what medium, what thingamajig you played it on.
Thingamajig. Jeez, it really was your birthday last week, isn't it?
She played it on her Tamagotchi.
Hey! When you play this game here on your Nintendo.
Where's the Space Invaders?
Yeah.
It is true, these people are different.
I haven't liked a video game since Snake, I tell you.
Is this game come on the N64?
Oh, so good.
You just made a lot of like older millennials feel really old doing the old voice for Nintendo 64, which was the console that I grew up with.
I could have said NES. Okay, I could have gone that far.
I mean that too.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But I play I played Xbox on Xbox. Which was really chaotic. There's like a whole story of, because I have an Xbox One, which is quite old now. It's like Xbox One is like a decade old. And I was like hanging on to it for dear life. I didn't want to get a new Xbox. But this game only came out on the newer generation consoles, so I had to get a game. But the turnaround of me getting the access to the early access to play the game, Ubisoft was like, hey, here's the game, test it out. I was like, I don't have a console to play this on, holy crap. And then the closest available Xbox to me was like an hour and a half away, so I had to run this covert extensive mission with my entire family that got me this new Xbox within a day. My brother had to go purchase it from a store, drop it off to my other brother because my internet's terrible. So he downloaded the game on his Wi-Fi, so it downloaded quicker. Then my other brother at my other house, at his house, my dad picked it up from his house, then met me halfway to where I live now, which is an hour and a half away, to hand over the Xbox for me to then bring it home and be able to play the game within like a 12-hour period. It was this hilarious mission of comedy of errors trying to get me this new Xbox, because I'm like, quick, Ubisoft, send me the game. Anyway,
it's the best heist story I've heard since Aldani.
Yeah. It literally was. It was literally a heist game. Not that we stole it, but the Xbox, I did pay for it. But yes, I did pay for it.
Yeah. Wait. Amazing. Well, what else? What else stood out to you, positive or negative, about the experience of Outlaws?
I won't spoil anything directly, but there is a very, very fair amount of fantastic references, connections, mentions of things in the game. I'm not talking about like would it take cameos.
Could we do an entire Ben's Connection corner just going through these connections?
I almost could, and like they're not really, honestly, like yes, because there's so many things that it's not like a character cameo, but it's like a random NPC in a town on Tatooine like mentions something from like one of the Boba Fett episodes. Like it's really impressive, like what they've connected into the dialogue and certain ships and like certain trinkets around in a parlor.
I've seen a couple of cool cameos. One of which you posted. I won't spoil.
Yes, I was about to say it better be the one I posted. Thank you for the support.
Is there more to that cameo than what you posted, or is it literally just what you posted?
Not that I have discovered yet.
Okay,
interesting.
Very funny.
Just wanted to know. But okay, so lots of cameos, lots of lore. It's like they've done their research. They've made them proud with their connections.
And yes, and I think one thing about this game that I just really, really enjoyed that I just didn't really think about as I was playing it is that we have a plethora of content that is pre A New Hope. That is BBY, and we Fallen Order, Survivor, Rebels, Bad Batch. We have so much content in that era, and we don't actually have a lot of content around original trilogy stuff. But this, of course, this game is set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and that energy and time period comes across very well. The Empire is a big thing. They're pretty much posted on every planet that you're on. And they have a very, we punching the mic away. They have a very heavy presence in the game. So that adds that element of you're trying to be this sneaky scoundrel, trying to do these things and get away and sneak away from the Empire, and do things with syndicates, but the Empire can find you and they mark you wanted. So for a period of, it'll be 10 minutes of the game. The Empire's after you, but then if they can't find you, they're abandon the search. We can't find them. And then it's really interesting how that that is actually added in. It's cool.
That's my favorite low-key Star Wars reference, because that's the A New Hope stormtroopers. This door's locked. Move on. The droid's definitely
forget about it. That is the energy.
Find her in 10 minutes. All right, we're moving on.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And actually, speaking of, there's at every kind of checkpoint, if you're not wanted and the Empire do come across you, that you're quite, okay to move on through somewhere. Every checkpoint that is an Imperial checkpoint, they go, move along. Nice. Just I find every temperature says that. But yeah, the energy and the time period of this is actually really, really cool, because I think we're so used to that pre-New Hope, but they're very, it was in the first 10 minutes, this is not really a spoiler, but there's dialogue talking about now the Death Star's gone and kind of really a lot of key points, showing where the Empire is at the moment. And they're still really at such a strong height of, the height of their strength as an empire. And that's still so present in just the kind of, whoa, I keep punching this mic. What is wrong with me today?
Just so excited.
I just clocked it. Just bang. It really I lost my train of thought now. But it just it just fits you right in so well to the story of the time period, and really interesting to get original trilogy time period. It's cool.
Yeah. It is interesting. That, you'd think the original trilogy classic, that's the thing that theoretically people have the most nostalgia for. And that would be the era you would go heaviest on, but for whatever reason, they always go just before it. And yeah, it's kind of interesting to start weaving things in with it. I know the comics have done a ton of stuff that weaves in with it, but in other moving picture mediums, like a video game. Okay, this is open to everybody. This next question, in fact, I expect everybody to answer it honestly, and there is a correct answer to this. Hannah, behind you on your shelf, you've got Nyx, got the new critter. Rank for cuteness: Nyx, Nubs, Basil.
Ooh.
Oh man,
that face.
I'd hold up a Basil piece of merchandise to go along with.
Why is Basil not? Is Basil not have a poster? Let me. Basil was not.
He is on some of them, but
Basil was the real acolyte of that show. I don't know why he's not on the poster.
Definitely
should be. All right. You people have their three. There is a correct order to this.
Can we post this on Twitter? Mine. That always blows up.
Yeah. Put Ben.
All right, Ben, I'll work on it.
Put it on Threads. Damn it.
What was the last poll we did? Who's a better pilot? That's right.
Oh right, yeah. There was another.
There was one involved Oreos and Jar Jar. That's all I remember.
Still the best.
Still the best. What best poll possibly be?
Actually, how do we do a poll if it's ranking things? I don't know.
So just say what's best.
Yeah.
What's best, and then it'll be in order. Yeah.
Who's
okay. Enough production meeting. Enough production meeting. Will give us.
We're live. Who's the cutest?
I know mine.
It's gonna be. I'm gonna say it. Or are you gonna announce it? Dom?
No, you everybody's got to give their answers, and then I'll give the correct one.
Nyx, Basil, Nubs is mine.
Basil, Nubs. Okay. Benjamin.
Nubs, Nyx, Basil.
Okay. Chris?
Mine is actually different than the other two. Nix, Nubs, Basil.
The correct order is Basil, huge drop, Nubs, Nix.
So we all do different
how
orders.
dare you.
Look, and
That's
this is
impossible.
yeah, that was actually impressive that we managed to pull that off.
That's great.
And that is
Wow.
not. And look, I
We
mean,
never agree.
I mean, no disrespect to Nix. I played a claw game last weekend to try and win that same plush that you got there, Hannah. I played a goddamn claw game and lost, if you can believe it.
How dare you?
Joseph in the chat says, "How is Merle not included?" This is where, yeah, I was gonna say, who's Merle?
Oh, come on.
He sounds so familiar.
Sabine's loft cat. Come
Oh.
on, you fake fans.
Yes, I was like,
This is Ben. This is why you're the trivia champion, and Dom is not.
And you know what's worse? You know what's worse, Ben? Less than a month ago, I was staring literally at Merle because they had him at D23, and and they kept calling him Merle, and I was like, what?
D23?
And I was like, yeah, what? I should mention that more often. They kept calling him Merle. I was like, what the hell? No, Merle, distant fourth. I'll be honest. Can I say something? Loft cats, overrated.
Oh my god!
No.
Yes.
No.
Your very first correct take, Dom. Holy wow! Your very first correct take.
There we go.
They're not like
they're not
bad.
Yeah,
but they're not properly rated. They're not
Exactly.
properly rated.
There is an
Get over it.
abundance. They are overrepresented in the cute Star Wars critters categories.
I think it's their legs. I don't like their legs. They look like chicken legs.
They got chicken legs.
Little, like that. It just looks bizarre to me. I don't. It makes me uncomfortable a little bit. Just like these little stick legs. Chicken legs, yeah.
You used no words to describe their legs there, Hannah, but I knew exactly what you meant when you went.
I really did.
Yeah.
I sounded like a porg, actually. Oh my days, that's so true. Wow, I really didn't use any words. This is what Chris meant by that's the face you can hear.
There you go. Exactly.
Just making anything but words here, and that's it.
Well, Chris, Ben, let's throw it to you guys. Are you excited to play Outlaws? Are you ready for it? Are you looking forward to it? Are you going to play it next week?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've just kind of learned my lesson from Jedi Survivor, which I still haven't finished, which is don't buy a Star Wars game unless you have like a week to just sit down and play it. Because these games are not the types of games that I can play really just one piece at a time, because they're not like arcade games. Like there's certain, like Battlefront was easy for me, just do a match and be done. I could play it here and there. But like the big story games, I really want to just like go through, and just kind of one very long sitting that involves just taking naps in between for a whole week. That's my preferred way, because I did that with Fallen Order, and that was absolutely incredible. I just enjoyed that experience. So until I have at least several days to go through, I'm not going to be playing it, because I don't know when that will be. And I probably should also finish Jedi Survivor also too. So it's in the queue. It's in the queue. But I definitely want to, before I die, I will play this game. 100%.
That's
like it will happen. I do want to play it. It looks amazing.
I make no such promises. And Ben, what about you? What's your feeling about I was gonna say Acolyte, Outlaws coming up?
That's a loaded question. Okay, first of all, important updates here. With 100% of the vote, Nix is currently leading.
Wait, did you
with just one vote?
Did you just post this?
Yes.
Did you put this only on Threads? Did you actually?
Because that's what you said to do. I do what I'm told.
Have you learned nothing? Never listen to Dom. Never listen to Dom. Ever.
We only have one social media account.
I have lived my life like that. I've lived my life like that, and I've been so successful.
Threads is the only social media that exists.
Dom said, "Don't jump off a bridge." Would you jump off a bridge? Hey,
Thanks, Dad. Why are you a dad?
There are other things that you can do besides jumping, you can roll on the bridge instead of
Okay.
Talking
jumping
about?
on
What are you talking about? You
All right,
nuts.
now Nyx, Basil, and Merle are all tied. With one
No,
CD.
wait. I need to
Or I
where's my
quit.
threads account. I'm forward.
Better get on it, guys. Better get
Fix
on
this.
it. Better get
I
on
will
it.
quit.
I have-
As far as my thoughts on Star Wars Outlaws, of course, like it looks amazing, and like I haven't even played Battlefront 1 and 2 yet. Like I'm way behind on these next gen Star Wars games. Okay, I do really want to play them all when I get a proper console in the near future, when I actually like have the time to sit down and play these things. Hell yeah, because like some games, like I'll be honest, Jedi Fallen Order is a game that like I look at the gameplay and I'm like, this looks amazing. I feel like I would get bored really quick playing that game. To me, I still like, if I had the game and I like, if I had an Xbox or a PlayStation 5, like I absolutely would buy it and I absolutely would play it. But I feel like it just would, not that it's a bad game. It's just like, I don't know if it's quite the game for me. Whereas this more like, oh, it's exploring, because ultimately, like I love Lego Skywalker Saga. Like that game is, I think, really an excellent game. And it's the same vibe of, it's the actual first open world Star Wars game, Ubisoft.
Yes.
Dang it.
None of them are actually the first open world Star Wars video game. That is Star Wars Galaxies, but that's, never mind that.
Okay,
never
fair
mind.
point.
Never mind facts in our advertisement.
Jeez. If you like the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, you will love this game. It's the same energy. It's the exact same energy. Ben. 100%.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Okay. My only thought on Star Wars Outlaws right now is that the YouTube pre-roll ads that I keep getting for the game kind of suck. They kind of suck. The game itself looks fun, but those YouTube ads do not scream epic Star Wars adventure. They scream generic space trash.
You know what is so interesting? One of my first comments of the game, and when I did my first tester of it, I was like, oh my God, no one listened to the trailers. No one look at the trailers, please. The game is nothing like the trailers. That was my biggest thing. It's like, I felt like with the trailers, they tried to do a cinematic, like lean into that cinematic trailer energy too much. And that just does not encapsulate that kind of immersiveness enough, and that the detail and complexity of like the whole bounty hunter system that it has. So yeah, I actually get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
And also, actually, just to piggyback off your point here, talking about the advertisement for this game.
The second good point.
Yeah, damn it. You're not allowed to have more than 3 in a show.
Just wait till we get to the Acolyte stuff.
Yeah. Jeez, I'm not ready. I obviously am from Sydney. I live in Sydney at the moment. And
no way.
I shut up. Oh my God. Get out of my space.
Oh, I need to get some boxing gloves. These two are just ready.
He's actually. Oh, I love it. Anyway, okay, I'll talk. Now he's gone. Now I can actually talk. So I don't live in the city of Sydney, but I live in like the suburbs on the extra parts of Sydney, outside of it. I don't live in even a very popular suburb. Like it's not a massive suburb. I'm like way out, right? I was driving on a main road the other day, and at a bus stop in like, again, not a popular suburb, way out from the city, not even a main place. There was at a bus stop, there was a poster promoting the game. Star Wars Outlaws coming. I was like, what bus? Is this, am I dreaming? I was like, what bus stop in this, my random ass suburb has this sign? Like, how do they? And I was literally like, I wanted to film it, but because I was like, do they, like, I didn't know people in this suburb knew Star Wars. Like, what? This is so weird. It's just that weird thing of seeing Star Wars in random places. It was so great. So great.
Ben, do they have any Outlaws billboards up in Mississippi?
No.
I haven't seen any yet, but I haven't been past the like place where they usually are. I did see Acolyte one, so I'm assuming they probably replaced those with Outlaws ones. But I haven't passed that section of town, wherever that is. I think it's somewhere in Hollywood where they usually have the big Star Wars thing out.
Nice. Ben, are you posting the poll on any other social medias, or are we legitimately sticking to threads?
There's no other social
You'll
media.
see.
Okay.
Well, okay, I have an update. Nyx is now winning 50% of the vote, 17 for Nub, 17 for Basil, 17% for Merle.
Just wait
It's
till the
on
mail-in
Twitter.
ballot
It will
refresh.
soon be on Facebook
Refresh.
for everyone
Still
to
that.
participate.
It's still that. But no, if there's a poll on different ones, then how do you pick which winner actually won? Because there's multiple winners. Because someone won this one and someone won that one.
We'll have to have a runoff.
On which one?
Threads will be the deciding. Will be the deal
Okay,
breaker.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
All
yes,
right, brilliant.
as long as Threads ends up deciding in the end of the day, I'm good.
All right. Well, before we wrap up the Outlaws talk, Hannah, any final thoughts on the game? Anything that we haven't touched on? You want to make sure people know before they start playing it in the next day or so.
I feel like I have to mention and give special shout out to the involvement of your kind of counterpart character that is honestly the coolest looking droid ever. ND5, which I don't know if he's meant to be like Ned or something, but ND, he is such a fantastic character in the game. He has such a great personality. And by personality, he almost has a lack of personality, which makes him just such a great character for Kay to really bounce off throughout the game. But he's just like a cool guy. He's just like, he is what he looks like. He's just kind of badass. He kind of swoops in a few missions to like save you and help you out. And he's just such a great addition to the game. So that, I mean, the hype for his character and him, as much as it's like, oh, I almost wanted to play as him throughout the game, and he would have been really cool to be as, but he's just as cool to work alongside with Kay. He's such a great addition to the game. So fun. Really, really cool.
Nice. I'm gonna call him Ned just because I feel like that's
right. I'm
not gonna remember. I'm not gonna remember ND5, but I'll remember Ned. Good old Ned. All right.
He's not going to make it through the first season if his name is Ned.
Oh, it's
buffering, loading.
Here's where my brain went. I was thinking of Groundhog Day. Ned Ryerson. Anyway,
Ned. I'm surprised you didn't think of Ned Flanders.
Hi, Dilly Hodily. I should have. But anyways, Star Wars Outlaws, it's out tomorrow or today, as most of you are listening to this, August 30th. Have fun, everybody. Enjoy the game. All right, we'll move from a very exciting and happy Star Wars story to a very sad and frustrating Star Wars story. Last week, of course, we learned that the Acolyte would not be returning for a second season on Disney Plus. And in the time since then, we've started to hear from various cast members speaking out about the cancellation of the show. We'll get to those in a second. I just wanted to take a second because I missed last week's show. I wanted to just take a second to say how disappointing this decision was. I think it was, the writing was kind of on the wall when we got through D23 and there were no announcements. It's trying to hold on to some level of hope, trying to hold on to some level of, possibility that maybe the show, they're saving that announcement for another day. But the writing seemed pretty clear that if they wanted to make a big splash announcing it coming back, they would have done so during the big Disney convention. And that said, it's still disappointing to see a story abandoned in the middle. And this goes back to my earliest concerns about the change from Lucasfilm being owned by George Lucas to being owned by a company like Disney, which is there is no commitment to completing any story. Say what you will about George, the man committed to telling his stories and he committed to telling them all the way through. He he did bend to pressure. It's a myth to say that he never did, but when he set out to tell a story, he told it. The comparison has been made many times, many ways, with the Clone Wars. And I know we all love the Clone Wars now, but if we go back to 2008, 2009, not a lot of people love the Clone Wars. A lot of the discourse around the Acolyte you were hearing around the Clone Wars. It's maybe more vitriolic around the Acolyte for reasons we'll get into. But the general feeling around the Clone Wars was that people didn't like it. Obviously, people did, but the general consensus was people didn't like it. But George was like, hey, I'm a crazy billionaire. I've got money. I'm just going to fund this show and make it the way I want it. And that was the nice thing about having an eccentric billionaire who cared about stories in charge of your thing. Now you have a board of directors, you have shareholders, you have executives whose goal isn't to tell an interesting story, advance the technology, or any of the things that George was setting out to do. It's strictly to make money. And, the streaming bubble is, if not already burst, in the process of bursting. So this show may have gotten a second season 2 years ago, but it will not. It's sort of a victim of timing more than anything else. But it's very clear. You watch that last episode. There are two or three major storylines that are meant to be picked up on in the next season, and they won't be. They just won't be. And people say, oh, maybe it'll get picked up in books and comics and in other places. Point me to the Darth Maul running Crimson Dawn comic book. I'd like to pick that one up. Could I pick that up? Could I read that novel? Can I watch that animated series? Try as they might, the story is just going to be left here. And it's a shame. It's a shame. And that is leaving it separate from the fact that this show, as many Star Wars things do, became a flashpoint in the culture wars. And whether or not that factored into the decision to cancel it, I don't know. But it winds up feeling like the decision makers at Disney and Lucasfilm are acquiescing to people who are mad that a queer woman was in charge of making the show, that it starred a predominantly diverse cast with lots of people of color, lots of women in main roles, and they were just wanted to be mad about it for the sake of being mad about it. If whether or not that is actually the reason it was canceled was because they listened to those people, I don't know, but that's the optics of it, and that's just shitty. So I understand the business reasons why they might have canceled this show, but from a story and an optics point of view, this just sucks. It just sucks. And I know you guys spent an hour on this last week, so I won't take any more time on bemoaning it. But I wanted to get my piece off on this as well, because it just sucks. And I'm disappointed that this show that I enjoyed, while it wasn't perfect, it had more ground to cover, more potential to live up to, and could have been something great if it had been given a second season. The same way Clone Wars became something great with its second, third, fourth, fifth seasons, and same way many other shows had that opportunity to grow into being something great. So that's what I wanted to say. Let's talk to the cast, or we can't really talk to them, but we'll hear from them. It's Lee Jung Jae. We'll start with him. He was asked about this by Entertainment Weekly. He said this: as you know, my character had died already in the first season, so I wouldn't have appeared in the second season if there was one anyway. But personally speaking, I really loved Leslie's writing. I thought that she was a great writer and director, was very talented in the storytelling, as well as creating characters and creating meaningful structures within the story. So I was actually personally really looking forward to watching a season 2 with her at the helm. Honestly, I'm hoping that maybe there could be changes in the future, because you never know what's going to happen. So on a personal level, I really hope we could get to see the further stories of Leslie's second season. I'll say kind of a little bit more of a I don't know. That's sort of. I think Lee is trying to. What do they call him? LLJ? Is that what we call him? Or LJJ? JJ. That's what they call him. JJ.
Yeah, they said JJ.
That's what they call him. I was like, there's some acronym for this guy's name, but I can't think of it. But it sounds like JJ is trying to put. I don't know. He's trying to put on like kind of a strong face. Like he's trying to be sort of remain some level of optimism. Is that something that anybody shares? Is that a feeling that anybody shares here?
I mean, I'm optimistic because of the fan response to it being canceled, because I feel like it's the only thing that comes close to it was the response when the Clone Wars was.
I mean, that took 8 years. But
I mean, I'll still be satisfied, better late than never, if they do it in 8 years. I obviously would hope that it happens faster, but
I'm optimistic in the way that I feel, and there's a lot being said about the powers that be at Lucasfilm and Disney right now, and a lot of really bad stuff, a lot of maybe tame stuff, but a lot of bad stuff, especially if you go on social media. People very angry and emotional, and I get it. I personally don't take it as, I don't take this cancellation as a personal offense or them like saying these people that were toxic and that launched this hate campaign against the show, they're right and you're wrong. I don't take it that way. I take it as people behind the scenes are doing the best that they can, and it's a bad situation. And I feel like Lucasfilm, while they don't have a perfect track record, they have a history of not forgetting storylines, not forgetting characters, not throwing anything away, as we talked about with everything from concept art to storylines to characters. No one is ever really gone, as is the saying. So I'm like, well, it could be that the Acolyte is indeed finished, that season 1, the Acolyte, it's going to be a season of 1 season show, and that's all it'll ever be. I'm still confident that more stuff will show up, that these storylines, these characters will show up in some form or fashion. I'm not just talking about novels or comics or anything like that, because obviously the High Republic is there. They could easily expand. This show came from books and comics. It could easily go back into books and comics. These storylines came from that. So, but I'm confident that things, just like the Lando movie is a thing that's still out there, and maybe it'll happen. Hopefully, Donald Glover, please say that thing. Like I'm like, okay, that's interesting idea, because like it doesn't have to be a straight sequel. It doesn't be a straight season 2. It can be, we're gonna take this character and do this or whatever else. Obviously, yes, I want to see Osha being trained by the Stranger and them hanging out with Darth Plagueis on that planet and doing all. I want to see that story, but it may be something a little bit different, and because the Acolyte was in and of itself something different that I didn't quite expect, and I think a lot of people behind the scenes care about the stuff as much, if not more, than we do. And I feel like there's a lot of chances for stuff to come back in different ways. So I'm confident in that. I'm reasonably hopeful, knowing also that this is a business, and sometimes business decisions suck, like this one. But I want to remain optimistic.
Hannah?
Yeah, I am at such an interesting point of this whole saga, because I mean, as we might remember through the Acolyte discussions, there's a lot of things I didn't love about the show, quite a lot of things, and in summation at the end of the show, it ranked my least favorite out of all the shows we've gotten so far, and it really wasn't something that tickled me fancy to the show. So with this news, I'm coming from quite a neutral place. I neither hate the show, I do not dislike the show, but I definitely do not love the show, and I don't. I'm really in the middle. I'm really bang in the middle. So all this happening, I think. Unlike I think a lot of people who either passionately love this or passionately hate this, this decision. I'm more just I'm very rational about it. The show didn't perform as they probably hoped, and you can tell what they were thinking with the budget behind the show. They were investing in, hey, this is maybe a time period we can dump a lot of money into to make a show, make a book series with, make a comic book series with, really expand this time period and these characters. And that shows with the $180 million budget they put behind the show and their hope for what it was going to do. And in it, like what Ben said just previously, in a business sense, that just did not perform. And when it comes down to Disney, they're cutthroat with their business decisions, and that's always at the forefront of their mind. So coming from a very neutral position, I can understand it. Honestly, I think I just don't have enough emotion to say this is good or bad. I think I can rationalize that it just didn't perform. It's not going to bring that money that they were hoping for it to be this big success. And they go, okay, well, let's not invest in this anymore. That's a different. That is like a statement that I still sit with now, and I'm like, yep, that's the situation. There's another thing to be discussed, which I think you're tapping on a little bit there, Dom, at what you were bringing up is, what does this mean for the creative business? What does this mean for the creative process of film, of television, of all media genres, and of Star Wars, of Lucasfilm? What does this say for their creative gusto? And obviously comparative to George Lucas, who is a pioneer of sticking to his guns, doing what he thinks is creatively creatively adventurous. And that proved to be a success for him. And this move I can also see this opinion of, it is, as much as I didn't like the show in a lot of ways, and I don't think it was great in a lot of elements of the show, I almost personally value the creative ledge that they were kind of leaping off with it. I can appreciate that, and I appreciate that they were wanting to step into somewhere new, and I think it is very hard, and I think that's what we forget. It's not just about do people like or not like the show. It's about, like, what does this do for the creative process behind it? And I think that is a very complex question. That is, a mix of the value of arts and media and the value of business and money and money talks. So, like, it's such a hard line to balance. Well, this is really a pinnacle of it.
Yeah, it feels like a decision that was made based on the short term. It was based on, we didn't get as many viewers for season 1 as we wanted. We pumped too much money into the production. Therefore, just throw it away. But it was meant to be kind of the cornerstone of a new era of Star Wars, of the High Republic. It was supposed to tell this sort of expansive story that would tie in with what we know, but also really get to be its own thing in a way that few other shows get to be. Andor ultimately has to end with him, joining the rebellion, and getting to the Death Star and all that stuff. Mandalorian is set in a really sort of familiar place. We know, okay, yes, we're gonna fight Thrawn and Moff Gideon, but ultimately the Empire is not gonna win. With Acolyte, because it was so removed from everything else, there was an opportunity here to do a lot in this era with characters we don't know their fates. We know where things wind up 100 years later, but I mean, think back 100 years ago, and it's quite different. Things were, stories were, or just the things that were happening in the world were very, very different. And so, yeah, okay, Acolyte itself may not have delivered what they wanted, but why not invest in the era? And this is going to be a question for stuff going forward now. Yes, of the movies that have been announced, we have 2 movies that are set within the Mandalorian framework. Those seem relatively safe. The other 2, the Rey movie and the Origin of the Jedi stories, are removed. And if those movies don't deliver at the box office, then bye-bye to those eras. We're not getting there's no more storytelling there. But sometimes you got to just do stuff there to build up to it. And again, the ultimate example of this is Clone Wars. You watch the first 2 seasons of Clone Wars, there are flashes of greatness, but there's a lot of real average stuff in there. And it's not until you hit the back half of season 3 that you get this story that finally starts, running on all cylinders. That finally becomes the thing that when people talk about their nostalgia for the Clone Wars, what they are generally talking about are those later stories. And because we're not allowing this era to, go through the growing pains of, not just figuring out the one story of the Acolyte, but also figuring out what does this era represent? What does this era mean? You're going to miss out on future storytelling. And you're going to miss out on good things down the line, whether they are directly related to the Acolyte or not, because perhaps the lesson that gets taken from this is, don't stray too far from that between episodes 3 and 4 era. Don't stray too far from there. Stick everything in there. Keep it nice and safe. And then you're just getting reduxes and remixes of Kenobi, Solo, Reddit, Rebels, and Andor. Like that's maybe that's where we wind up being stuck. So yeah, I'll be honest, I'm really like this. It wasn't a surprise because they didn't do anything with it at D23. And it is understandable from the business point of view. Like I'm not arguing that that if you go into a boardroom, this isn't the smart decision. But I feel like they have shown their hand here of, okay, we tried it, it's not going to work, so let's just go back. And it seems to happen every time. It seems to happen every time instead of allowing things to grow and evolve and become something more. And Chris, you mentioned the fan response. Yes, the fan response was very loud, but let's not kid ourselves about it either. That petition that gets shared around has something like 50,000 signatures.
Almost 60 now.
That's a lot of signatures. If we were going to city council trying to get them to rename a park after George Lucas, and we brought a petition with 60,000 signatures, I think the vote would be 20-0. Like they'd be like, yeah, okay, this is what the town wants. But in terms of like getting a genuine response from Lucasfilm or Disney, that's nowhere near enough. You need millions.
But I think it's hundreds of thousands. Like, I think from what I've seen, Star Wars petitions, typically the ones that have gotten the most in history were in the hundreds of thousands, not the millions.
The amount of people that will go online, that are online enough to know this is happening, and also like to even know the Acolyte has been canceled. Like most people that watch the show probably don't even they may have seen it on a headline or something like that. They're not entrenched in the fandom. Like the amount of people that will go and sign an online petition is like a fraction of the amount of people that watch the show or like the show, whatever. That's a huge number. And yes, it's not nearly enough to really make a difference per se, but petitions really are. It's just like, hey, this bunch of people cares about this thing. And go ahead.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying people shouldn't sign the petition. I'm not trying to diminish the petition. I'm not trying to diminish the efforts or the thought process behind it from the people who organize it. I don't mean to come across that way. I just want to make sure we're being realistic about it. The other thing though, this is more the other thing. And Disney knows exactly what they're doing. Lucasfilm knows what they're doing. This story leaked 1 week ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an outcry. There was massive, people really upset on social media. There were, opinion editorials posted in the Rolling Stone, Forbes, LA Times, all through the mainstream media. This was a big, big story. What did we spend the first 45 minutes of this show talking about? Star Wars Outlaws. They let this story leak where there would be enough time people could get their feelings out, and then we'd move on to being excited about the next thing. And so whatever moment that seemed like for a minute there, it seemed like there might be some genuine momentum. Like when those editorials were getting posted and things were getting really picked up, felt like there was going to be some momentum. And then the Outlaws stuff started coming out. And it died down considerably until this next story, which is Amandla Stenberg.
Yeah.
She's kind of forced the issue, and I have to hand it to her for bringing this right back into the forefront. She went on her Instagram, I think today, or was it today or yesterday?
It was yesterday. It was yesterday. Yesterday evening.
Wednesday evening. And, you know, she spoke her mind. And all of a sudden, I think the attention for a minute was back on this show. And by the way, I'm not saying anybody shouldn't be excited about Outlaws. I'm not saying we're wrong to be excited about Outlaws. Yeah, be excited about it. If you want that, if that's the kind of stories we want told, which we do, then be excited about it. Play the game, like all that stuff. But I'm just saying, like, I think Disney was very intentional with their timing on this. They could have canceled it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, but they waited until 1 week ago because they wanted to give everybody that sort of opportunity where it wasn't quite as blatant if they had canceled it right before the Outlaws embargoes started lifting.
And if they had canceled it a little bit earlier, then it would have been around the time of D23. And I'm sure they don't want
overshadowing other things, right? So
yeah,
they're look, they're very smart in what they're doing and what their timing on this. But Amandla, she said, she went on her Instagram and posted a whole series of stories. She said, I'm going to be really transparent and say that it's not a huge shock for me. Of course, I live in the bubble of my own reality, but for those who aren't aware, there has been a rampage of vitriol that we have faced since the show was even announced, when it was still just a concept. No one had even seen it. That's when we started to experience a rampage of, I would say, hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language towards us. And this is where we get into what I was saying earlier about this show became a flashpoint and all the bullshit that we find ourselves dealing with in general. And, you know, a lot of the talk about the reasoning behind the cancellation was focused on the numbers, which is a real factor in all of this. But what I think Amandla is pointing out here is that the optics, what it looks like, is that they caved to the people who didn't even give the show a chance, who decided they didn't like it because of who was making it and who was in it. And, you know, we're doing things like posting negative reviews of the show before it had even come out, posting negative reviews of a other movie that happened to have the word Acolyte in the title. Shout out Uncle Owen, who had the unfortunate honor of being in that movie. Joel Egerton. So Amandla continues. She says, it brought up for me a lot of social and political dynamics, a lot of my own value system, how I respond to that kind of hatred, how I move through the world at large. And it just became inarguable for me at a certain point that in order to continue to be myself, I would have to honor my value systems by being vocal, even within the context of working for Disney and working within the large edify. I'm bad with words. Camp, and within the large, massive IP that is Star Wars. It's not lost. She goes on to say, it's not lost to me that the way that these events have unfolded is also due to the hyper divisiveness of the time that we live in. That is driven, I would say, at this point by echo chambers of thought and algorithms that reinforce our biases. And I think that applies to everybody. But I think that in a particular sect of people, it manifests as a lot of fear for what is changing and a lot of hatred for anything that is other. I think she hit the nail on the head.
Pretty much.
And again, she's pointing out what this looks like. Even if it wasn't, this is what it looks like. And you know what? There was a time I might have said, I don't think Bob Iger thinks that way. That he's somebody, in my opinion, has plummeted in the last few years. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Disney board sat around and said, boy, there was a lot of people being really mad about the show. It's not, maybe under a different context, if we had the same number of people watching the show, but they all really liked it, we would give it another season. But we have this number of people watching it, and all the noise around it is negative. So somebody get the axe out. We're canceling it.
Well, I mean, we got the Little Mermaid movie. I'm pretty sure that we're still getting the Snow White movie with Rachel Ziegler. Obviously, there was similar types of discourse around those films as the Acolyte. So I think that Disney is definitely willing to stand up for things when there's a lot of negative feedback, and to just show, like, one of the interesting things, whether or not you think 60,000 signatures is significant for the petition. One of the interesting things about that petition is there was a counter petition to that. Don't renew the Acolyte. And you could actually directly compare how many signatures they were getting, which was a very interesting thing, because when you are just online and you're just reading comment sections and people are arguing in comment sections, it's hard to actually really gauge how many people are arguing for one thing versus the other thing. Because sometimes one side can be more vocal and could be typing up more words and sending more comments than the other. But, unfortunately, we can't compare it now because I believe Change.org has actually gotten rid of the Don't Renew the Acolyte petition.
Really?
Yeah, last time I went to go look at it, I couldn't find it.
There was a bunch of them.
Yeah, but the thing is, it was always doing it was getting 10 to 20% the amount of signatures as the main Renew the Acolyte one, which shows you that there's at least 5 times more people, if not more, that, are passionately for, more Acolyte versus passionately against it. And so it shows you the vast majority of the audience actually like this thing, as opposed to this very vocal, which is still proven to be a minority of people that didn't and might not have even watched it or hate watched it, as we've been talking about in previous weeks. So that's interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I think it comes down to it's not a matter of Disney caving to people that are passionately against content that expands the universe, both in an out of universe and in universe perspective. But I think it's more of them not willing to stick with something that's getting a lot of negative feedback for the wrong reasons when they could make the creative decision to stick with it a little bit more. I think that's the issue right there. So it's more of a neutrality from Disney, as opposed to being proactively one way or the other, that I think is the issue.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, let's for a second remove that there's any malice behind the scenes, like any possibility that someone could behind the scenes at Disney, executive, Lucasfilm, anybody could have taken some of this to heart and make that decision, or maybe even agreed with a lot of what people were saying online. There's still the concept of just this was a targeted hate campaign. This was a organized thing perpetrated by YouTubers and people on social media. And if you have been on social media the past 2 or 3 years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I've seen the comments denying this. This is the ultimate in gaslighting. We all saw it. And it was going on, as Lamandla said, from the moment the show was announced, this was happening. And then they did the Rotten Tomatoes review bombing, and then they did all this, and then their YouTube videos and whatever else. That stuff, they do that because it does have an effect. Not a huge effect, but it does have an effect. And as much as these doofuses on Twitter and Facebook go and get their bots to go review review bomb the Rotten Tomatoes, get it down to whatever for 13% or whatever else, and then go back to social media and go, look, it's this number, it's things, because we totally didn't review bomb it. That's the real score. There's still people going to Rotten Tomatoes who might use that service and go, wow, that Acolyte show is really low. Maybe I'll just skip it. Maybe I won't watch it. Maybe I just won't watch this thing because it has really bums. And I'm someone that's totally not online, that's not in the fandom, and which is most people that have no idea about these idiots that just have no lives, that just go review bomb stuff and create little hate campaigns. You have to consider that that also had an effect too, that it was at least somewhat effective, that at least one person looked at the Rotten Tomatoes or something, or watched a YouTube video about how the Acolyte is blah, blah, blah. Not to mention, not just one person, but probably a heck of a lot of people did that. And that impacted the viewership. And then the Disney uses that to say, okay, well, the viewership isn't good enough, so we're canning the show. And that's just leaving out the idea of like, okay, maybe this toxicity got to Disney, it got to the people in charge. They just didn't want to deal with it. And they saw this. Maybe some people agree with it. Look up Ike Perlmutter, okay? He was a big deal, and he was a really bad person. There's bad people behind the scenes that agree with this crap. I'm not pointing any fingers. Yeah, Bob, you're not a good Bob, okay? You're not a good Bob anymore, not in my opinion. But this all it's really bad, and it's a really intense thing, and I think it deserves discussing, because I think a bad decision was made here. Whether you like the show or not, I think it's fair to say, like, everyone reasonable, like, whether you like the show or not, we're all varied opinions, and we're like, nah, Disney, you done goofed. I think that's it. It really is like they need to examine this, and Lucasfilm and Disney, I hope, can look at this and look at what's going on online, and all, like, not just people online, but all the media outlets trashing them and saying this is a terrible decision. They can have a little bit of self-reflection here, Bob.
Yeah. To play devil's advocate here, in a world where this has happened and it's not being renewed, and if we minus the sort of extremism on both sides that we were chatting about even before the show, we had a fantastic conversation before the show, actually, you guys. Minus the extremism on both sides of the approach to the responding to this show, and the show is what it is. There's a few people that really connect with it, love it, enjoy it. There's a certain amount that don't enjoy it, don't like the writing, don't like the characters, don't like the show. And this decision was made. I
guess we'll never know.
Sorry, we had a bit Hart we had a Hannah the Star Wars girl moment.
Yeah. Remember when Hannah was earlier in the show when Hannah was saying her internet's really slow.
Is it coming out now?
Yeah, you're good.
You're
now.
back now.
Yeah, you're good now.
Am I back now? Actually,
just say the thing again.
Hang on, let me just cycle it for a second. Hang on. What? Someone say something for 2 seconds.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Thank you, Ben, for giving us.
Actually, no, I won't cycle it. Okay, no, let me just keep going. But yeah, thank you, Ben. What the hell was I saying? Oh, yeah. In a world where the extremism doesn't exist, wow, what a turn of the pace. Where the extremism doesn't exist for the response to this show, what would that look like? Like, if it was just a show that didn't do great numbers, more than usual people didn't like it, and it got cancelled, would it be this talked about? Like, it is just so interesting how media these days, whether it's good or bad, it is so interlinked with the current political and kind of social climates of the world, and I mean particularly America, because this is all American made and all kind of things, is such a reflection on it. So yeah, I'm not really making a question here, but more of just a out there question saying, yeah, well, if this was just like a normal show, few people liked it, few people didn't, and got cancelled, would we be this upset about it? Or is
Well,
it we're more upset that it's an injustice for the minorities? It's an injustice for people that have been ridiculed for a long period of time, long before Star Wars, long before media and outside of films and TV shows existing.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
yeah.
I think, I guess perhaps in general, obviously people are talking about the reality that we exist in, and the reality is there's that conversation, so people are talking about it. But I think also, I mean, look at what I said last week in my response to the cancellation. I didn't really talk about that. I was mainly talking about what it means for in-universe and the types of stories that they're telling in universe, and why I think it's unfortunate that they're abandoning a spot in the timeline and abandoning, expanding the universe further. That's my problem with it. Like, I think that it's a travesty that the show's being canceled, because I thought that it was healthy for the Star Wars franchise internally, and I think it's not healthy to continue just telling the same old stories again and again in the same time periods with the same characters again and again. And I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Yeah, can I sort of piggyback on that, Chris?
Yeah.
Like, I don't view the success or failure of the Acolyte or any other show as winning, right? Like it's quite literally means nothing for me other than, do I get to watch the show that I liked or not? Like it doesn't mean somebody is gonna, like, whether the Acolyte goes on for second season doesn't mean Donald Trump's gonna become president again or anything, right? Like that has it's no like real like major sort of thing. Like it won't impact this election. It won't like change leadership. It won't change policy. It won't do anything like that. Like it means nothing in that larger sense. The frustration is that it's what you're hitting on, that this interesting story is not going to be continued, in part because this show got dragged into all of that other stuff, right? Like, Star Wars is, it can be allegory, it can be, it includes lessons, it can comment on current events or history or that sort of thing, the same way it always has. Whether it's Palpatine as Nixon, or anything and everything that happened in Andor, or Anakin quoting Bush in Revenge of the Sith. Like it can be all of that, but it can also be kind of separate from it. Like it shouldn't, it shouldn't be tied in to what is going on. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what's frustrating is that this part of the world that we are, that everybody exists within and has to grapple with to a certain extent, which is the divisiveness and everybody being in their own bubbles, and we need to overcome that. It's unfortunate to see something interesting in Star Wars become a victim of that. That it's not going to continue and continue to push the storytelling in new and interesting ways, because it got dragged into the muck throwing of election cycles and people and their hyper partisanness, right? Like that's part of it. Like whether or not the Acolyte continues or not should not be viewed as a win or a loss for anybody, but because it stops the story in its tracks, it's a loss in that regard. And people who do view it as its continuation as a win or a loss, it does. I don't know where I'm getting at with that, but like it feels like it shouldn't be connected to that in the way that it is, and I'm not preaching for an apolitical Star Wars. It's just this culture war stuff has put a roadblock up from interesting storytelling being told, because the show got canceled, and it feels like it's part of it, is what I'm getting at.
So I'm actively thinking about this. I'm having an argument in my head, a whole debate in my head as you're talking, because I see two sides to this, and I'm going to be very like, let's like peel this thing apart at the core of these issues. So the first thing that goes through my head is this: if the Acolyte had a male lead character, like a white male lead character, and like a white male director and white male writers, and then it had come out with a kind of similar type of story, a story telling kind of the precursor to Plagueis, and we got Plagueis in the end, but same type of story. Would it have gotten the same type of hate? Would it have gotten review bombed if it was all just white males everywhere? Would it have? And white straight males at that? That's the first question. And the answer to that is I have difficulty imagining that it would have. I have difficulty imagining a world where this show would have gotten hate bombed if it was still the same. If it was still the same thing, same type of content, but you just changed that factor. So going from that perspective, it's indicative of a problem. And I think you're very right, when you say that stuff negatively impacted storytelling. That's independent of all of the politics. On the other hand, I have a devil's advocate of saying, well, we do have examples of Star Wars shows that have a lot of diversity in the cast and crew that didn't have this type of response. Like, I don't think Ahsoka got the type of response that the Acolyte got, and you have a woman of color leading that show. You have Deborah Chow, a female director, heading up the Kenobi show, and that did not get this level of vitriol.
I mean,
so
it did. Like it did. It was directed at Moses Ingram to the point where Ewan McGregor had to make a video saying, "Hey, stop it."
Yes, you're right about that. But I'm comparing directly. Basically, I'm presenting examples of. Are there examples of Star Wars things that people like that don't get hate that include the same elements that the Acolyte did from out of universe? And the answer is yes. So what I think my conclusion is, to be very fair to both sides, is the problem comes when you have something that is not an Andor, that is a bit controversial and not universally loved, independent of the politics. And then you combine that with the fact that you have a lot of diversity in the cast and crew as well. When you have a show that has female lead, female director, a lot of female writers, and a lot and elements of the storyline that is queer. When you have all of that come together, and then you combine that with also the fact that there are certain things in the story that's not everybody's cup of tea, because obviously we have people on the show here like Hannah, who the show's not her cup of tea, but she's not off rambling about all those elements at all. That's not why she didn't like it. Clearly,
that's on the Side Ray channel, not instead of
clearly.
the Raeside channel.
Clearly.
The ancient side.
So I think when you combine those two things together, that's when it becomes a storm. That's when it becomes a problem. And I think the real question is, I think this is my final conclusion after all of this internal debate, is do fans, or quote unquote so-called fans, whatever we want to call them, do these people that talk about Star Wars online, whether they like it or not, do they find critiquing the quality of content a vehicle to have, their bigotry come out? Like, do they see it as, okay, here's something that it is acceptable to critique within the entire culture, because a lot of people are critiquing it, and there's clearly things that should be critiqued from an artistic point of view, the things that we've talked about on the show, the things that Hannah and all of us have brought up that we didn't like about the show. But do they see it as, is it now, is it because this is acceptable to critique, then can I just critique this harder and with more passion than other things? Because in the back of my mind, the things I really, really am mad at is I'm mad that there's women and people of color and queer things all over this project. That's the question.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, if it would be nice if this debate was strictly about, did the show get enough viewers? Was it good enough to deserve a second season? But it's hard to have that debate, have that conversation without considering the other factor, because there is this big elephant in the room. And the question is, was it a decision that was based on numbers and quality, or was it a decision based on the elephant in the room? And we'll probably never know. Maybe there's a tell-all book coming someday that will give us all the details. But it does, because there is that lingering doubt that it wasn't that just not enough people like the show, or the show wasn't good enough, because it might have been something else. Because it might be, we want Star Wars to be a reflection of our best selves, right? We want, Luke saves Darth Vader in the end by appealing to his humanity. And we want Star Wars is at its best and most fulfilling, I think, when it's uplifting. And, when it reaches those levels, that's when it's most fun and it's most powerful and it's most impactful. And so we want Star Wars to be uplifting, and you don't want to be robbed of that feeling because of things that are the polar opposite of that feeling. The sexism, the racism, homophobia, all of that stuff. That's the opposite of uplifting. I feel like I'm speaking at a political convention all of a sudden. That is the opposite, and that is why we must vote. No. But like, because there's that lingering doubt that it could be because of those other reasons. It leaves an extra sour taste, or negative taste, or bad taste, in your mouth. When again, it could, in a perfect world, just be, you know what, not enough people just like the show. And in that case, some of the stuff I said off the top would still be frustrating. I'd still be annoyed. I wouldn't come on here and be happy that the show was canceled or indifferent. But it wouldn't feel so like soul crushing. And again, like this is why, I started this conversation, or a big thing that spurred on this conversation was what Amandla said, because I think she vocalized that what a lot of audience members were feeling, and made it clear that that was also what the people who made this show were also feeling.
Yeah.
Which again, if that's what the people making the show were feeling, it makes you really wonder who the decision makers were listening to. Because if even within the bubble of the show being made, they are hearing and feeling the same things that those of us who are just watching and enjoying it are feeling it, then probably the people who are making those decisions, they're probably hearing and feeling and seeing the same things.
Yeah.
You go, Ben.
No, I just to try to put in a button on all of this, because there's a lot of great, interesting things being said here that I mostly agree with. Like this, like the reason we're seeing the reaction, if we're kind of just like trying to figure this out emotionally, I'm just like, obviously this plays into the most like basic like human nature, like tribalism stuff of just like, it's the whole us versus them mentality of the real fans versus the whatever, the toxic fans, blah blah blah. Obviously the real story is that Star Wars fandom is just a thing, and then we have basically grifters, people in bad faith, invading our space, invading our fandom, bringing political agendas and pushing stuff and saying woke this, blah, 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 that. And obviously people that are just reasonable, that just want to watch Star Wars, are annoyed by that. But we know it has an effect on things. And something like this happening is just just like salt in the wound of we have to deal with this. And oh, by the way, the people that really don't even seem to enjoy Star Wars, that just hate it and hate anyone that dislikes it, are seemingly got a win out of this. And I understand that feeling and understand why. That's why this is so. It's not just a show being canceled. It's an injustice. It's someone bad didn't get what they deserved. They got what they wanted. And that's just the worst thing that could possibly happen, because we always want karma. We always want the bad guy to lose. We always want that person to get what's coming to them. And this is a case where the bad guys kind of won, even if they didn't. Like, my whole thing with this is like, people online are continually saying like they won, they got what they want. I'm like, quit giving them the win. Quit saying that they won. I don't believe that they had that much of effect on this. I think this was a Disney decision, and maybe it was affected by them, maybe it wasn't. But I think ultimately their effect on things is not as great as they believe. And we don't need to, air up their tires by saying, oh, well, they did this. They're the ones that, they are effective. I think it's the opposite. I think they're just a bunch of losers that kind of, that said a thing, and because they say a bunch of things and broken clock, right twice a day type of thing, it doesn't minimize the vitriol as Amanda so perfectly describes it, doesn't minimize what they said and what they do, but I think ultimately it is that. Ultimately it is this tribalism, this just injustice. It's not just my favorite TV show got canceled, not a TV show got canceled. It's the bad guys are getting away with something, and I have to stop them. And I get that. I understand why people are so pissed off about it.
Yeah. I would say, again, I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of people on all sides of this, and trying to understand, what's going on in everybody's heads. And I think what it comes down to is there's a disagreement about what's fair. Because I think one of the core things that almost every human has a desire for things to be fair for themselves and for other people. And I think that there's, a disagreement that is exacerbated by these echo chambers about what fairness looks like in our world. And I think that the issue comes down to this. There are people that see having diversity and having quality, they see them as mutually exclusive things, meaning you have to choose to either have something be diverse or something be good. And I think that's the issue. And I think it comes down from this idea of, well, if there are far more people just who all look the same, who are all from the same background, there are far more people knocking down the door to make something and be part of something who are all similar than people who aren't, then that means in their mind that the best people to make something, the best ideas most likely will come from that larger group. Because if you have 100 white guys trying to direct something and 3 black women trying to direct something, then they're looking at it and saying, well, clearly most of the good ideas are going to be from the 100 white guys because there's more of them. It's going to be rare that one of the women of color is going to have an idea that is rival of them, independent of who they are. And that's why they think it's unfair, because whenever they see an actor or a director or a writer, or even a head of a company like Kathleen Kennedy, who's not a straight white male, they think, well, that means they're there because they're replacing somebody who would have done a better job, because there's far more people who look like me than them. And that's why they think it's unfair. But the thing is, and this is, I think, the problem. They're doing something that's called a false dichotomy, a false separation. They're thinking things are mutually exclusive that aren't. Because here's the thing. At the top, when you have so many good ideas and so many people who can do the job very well, you have so many amazing, brilliant actors and writers and directors. Just because there are more white actors, more male directors out there, more straight people writing things than queer people writing things. Just because there's more of them, it does not mean that the majority of the good ideas and good ways of running things and good ways of acting are in that camp. It does not mean that, because they're all at the top. All of them have equally good ways of doing things. The actors at the top all are on par, capable. Like the 1,000 best actors in the world all can win an Oscar. All can do an Oscar winning worthy performance. It's not like, oh, there's Glenn Close and then, everybody else or whatever, and so that's where really the issue comes. And, it's been something that's kind of annoying me about just the discourse in America, because there's this massive political discourse of, is one of our political candidates a diversity hire or not? And it's like, even if there was a concerted decision made, which there probably was, to make sure that there was a candidate representing a group of people that very is underrepresented in politics, does not mean that someone unqualified has the position. It doesn't mean that. And so I think that what it comes down to. So I think that other side, that side that is, I think really they have a false sense of being mistreated, a false sense of something being taken from them, a false sense of something being unfair. That's what's motivating the negativity. I think it's that core, misunderstanding there. I think the core misunderstanding is the idea that diversity just means a quote unquote that things are going to be lower quality because they're picking the second best idea because they're picking the most diverse person to bring that forth. And I think that's the mentality that needs to be spoken to, rather than just straight up saying like, this is bigotry, this is bad, this is hate, saying all the negative things like that works for some people, and peer pressure works for some people, but there's always going to be a core group of extremists who, are rightfully immune to peer pressure, because ultimately your ethics should come before the morals of the group, that, actually need to be spoken with and reasoned with on their level, with their reasoning being shown, because ultimately in their head, they're not bigots, they're not hateful, they're not hating, they just care about fairness. That's what they're thinking in their head. It comes out as bigotry when you look at the grand scheme and the results of their actions. But in their head, they're not the villains. In their head, they are the heroes. And you have to speak towards the noble thing that they actually want, which is fairness, and just explain to them how what they think is fair is not actually as fair as they make it out to be, and reason with them why. That's what's going on in my head when I'm trying to picture things from all sides.
Yeah, the whole DEI discussion, like the diversity angle that people constantly bicker about, like people that complain about, oh, you're picking someone based on their skin color or their gender or whatever else. That's wrong. You're assuming that the system in place is already fair. The truth is the system is not fair in it from the get-go, and that the reason we have things like DEI to bring people of marginalized groups such as women, queer people, blah blah blah, like that's a necessary component of this whole thing, to bring people in that didn't have a thing, because most directors are still white straight guys. Like that's still a thing. And and you go to actors or whatever else, every aspect of filmmaking, of it's not because just less women wanted to be a director. It's because our society is set up in a way that discourages that and didn't let more women directors break through. And now we're just now getting around to fixing that. And it doesn't happen by itself or because people just didn't push for it.
All right. There we go.
This is a hell of a discussion.
Do we need a like check in on the polls here and just
Yeah. Okay. All right.
just
Poll check. Levity check. Poll check.
We got real heavy there.
Okay,
understandably so, but let's check in on the polls. But Ben, I do mean the presidential polls out of Pennsylvania. I don't care about this.
Oh yeah, of course.
It is neck and neck. It is a tight race right now.
Let's get
the
in
margin
there.
of error.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
That is
our next
great.
president will be Nix. Wait, no, that's not right.
Thank
No.
you.
No, wait.
So on Twitter, with 106 votes, we have Nix in the lead with 45%
Go.
of
Yes.
the votes. Let's go over to Facebook. Let's see what Facebook's doing. Facebook has, with how many votes? It doesn't tell me how many votes, but Murley, the Loft Cat, is in the lead.
What?
With a
Facebook-
pretty good margin of
That's-
a lead.
72 votes on Facebook, Ben.
Okay.
That's
Throwing
because
was not
Facebook
telling
is
me,
all cat photos.
This is true. And on Threads with 19 votes. Only 19 votes? Come on, Threads people. I know you can do better than that. With 37% of the vote, Nix is winning.
Yes.
So in 2 of the 3 polls,
Yes.
Nix is winning. So Nix is cleaning house tonight.
He's the cutest.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I will be preparing my legal challenges for next week.
It was rigged.
All right. Let's end with something let's end with something a little bit more fun. Let's check in on the Mandalorian and Grogu. Speaking of cute characters, got one of the cutest characters in all of Star Wars, and Grogu starring in the next movie. Big news this week from where did this come from? This was an interview that Deadline did at the Venice Film Festival with Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver confirms she is in The Mandalorian and Grogu. She says, quote, "I'm playing a role in The Mandalorian and Grogu. I got to meet Grogu for the first time the other day."
That's
Is
really cool.
Sigourney Weaver gay? Who am I thinking of?
I don't know, honestly.
No, I don't know.
She's got a husband. Don't worry.
Okay,
She's
kill
actually
yourself.
bi.
I think you have Jodie Foster. I think that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Of.
Yeah, I understand
That's
the
right.
confusion because they're both in big science fiction.
Yes.
movies,
Yes. And they kind of look the same, just 10 years apart.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about the story. Sigourney Weaver. Big fan.
And it's like, move off of this as quickly as possible.
Don't worry about that. Oh, that's great.
Good casting. This is very very Jon Favreau casting, I will say. To get sort of an icon of 70s 80s cinema and put them in Star Wars. Very Jon Favreau move.
We can already tell her character, like 100%. We can already tell she's going to be this no BS. I'm an independent woman. Let's go, gang. Like, let's do it.
I want
Cool
her
mom
to be like
vibe energy.
I want her to be like the equivalent of Christopher Lloyd's character in Mando 3. That's what I want. I want her to just be like off the wall, out of nowhere, somehow referencing an old part of Star Wars. Maybe she could talk about the Acolyte stuff. She'd be like, the Sith haven't been the same since the Stranger. Just bring it all back.
Is she meant to be the villain? Is that rumored that she's the villain?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm thinking Imperial. I'm thinking maybe like an Imperial holdout, maybe, because based on the trailer and based on what we know, we're assuming that he's going to be hunting old Imperials, and maybe she's one of them.
Ooh.
I think she should be a pseudo dad to Din Djarin and like wait. No, mum. A mum. I freaked myself out there. A mum to Din Djarin, and so she's this like cool grandma to Grogu. I want her to be on the good side. I think she should help them out on whatever journey that they need to do. That's what I hope.
Yeah, that would be cool. That'd be a good
like a space grandma. Come on, to Grogu. That's amazing.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right. Also in the Mandalorian and Grogu news reports updates, it sounds like unlike Mandalorian season 3, Pedro Pascal will actually be present for some of the filming of this thing. There is a report. Where does this report originate, Ben? Is this Hollywood Reporter? Where's this come from?
I don't know.
Good, great. I love it when we have a really strong source on things. I love that. That's
Yeah. So this is from the Hollywood Reporter, actually.
That's okay. That's what I asked you, and you said you didn't know.
Well, I was trying to stall and look up so I could get some verified facts here.
Yes, Pedro Pascal, obviously very, very busy guy, but it sounds like he will take part in the reshoots or shoots. He'll be shooting something for the Mandalorian and Grogu. Thank goodness. At the end of the year. This is like this is really interesting how this comes out. It's like buried in a story about Joaquin Phoenix quitting that other movie. And they're like, who could replace him? And one of the people were saying was Pedro Pascal. And basically the reason he can't do it is because he's filming a Marvel movie and a Star Wars movie this year. And that's going to take up a lot of his time. But yeah, I don't know if Din Djarin suddenly has the same facial hair as what's his face, the Fantastic Four guy,
suddenly have these giant gray sideburns, this slick back hair. We
didn't see Din's face for like a year. Maybe he's started to grow gray. You don't know, Ben. It could happen.
Or maybe we'll have a Justice League situation where some CGI hair, facial hair will appear or not appear.
CGI some facial hair, sure, why not? But this is good because I we've talked about this before, but I will say I do think one thing that was really missing from season 3 was Pedro's actual presence.
Yes. Sorry, continue. Finish your point.
I'm just saying, and that doesn't. I don't mean to take anything away from the other two, from Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder. Just that, such a big part of seasons 1 and 2 was the helmet thing. And, him taking off the helmet in season 2 was such a big sort of like emotional crux of the story that felt missing from the 3rd season, because it just sort of like he reverted back to a season 1 self. And especially since they spent so much of that season talking about the helmets and how it almost doesn't matter if you keep the helmet on or not. And they never, and yet he never took the helmet off. It was, there are many things in season 3 that felt strange and odd and not fully balanced, and that was one of them. And I think that was because Pedro was just too busy filming the other show that he does,
The Last of Us.
Yep,
that one. Yeah,
that's the one.
I definitely have the energy of that decision being like what you've said here, that they've noticed how much that hurt his name and face not being even just shown for one scene in that season.
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually did have quite a large impact. And I think they know that. And so they've gone back to the accounts department of Disney and been like, hey, do you think we could, if you sell the Galactic Cruiser, if we get rid of that and can we take the money and put it towards convincing Pedro to do more scenes for us for the movie? I definitely think they would have done that, because they learned from that, and to have his face in it, I think would just be it really just mean a lot to that movie.
Yeah, it's just like like you're doing a Mandalorian Grogu movie. You're gonna sell this movie as having Pedro Pascal in it, one of the most in-demand actors of our current time. You're not going to show his face. Like, you're not going to give him at least one scene. Like, I'm not expecting a full like sequence with Din without his helmet, or even the full movie. I'm beyond that hope. But come on, one moment. They can't get him on set for one day to have some FaceTime. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, Pedro. We know you want to do it. We know you want to be there. Rather be filming Star Wars. Be more fun than who wants to be in the Fantastic Four anyways. Anyway, I think that's where we will leave things. There's a couple other stories we can save for future weeks, including what's Alden Ehrenreich doing these days, and Bryce Dallas Howard kind of saving an episode of The Mandalorian. That's quite it. There's an interesting Bryce Dallas Howard quote that's going around, and what would season 1 have been without her is quite a question, but we'll save those.
Real MVP of that episode.
Yeah, we'll save those for next week, and as well as the Ask the SWU questions that have started to come in. We will save those for a future week, including the super chats that were sent in, because I think we have reached a point where we can begin to wrap things up for this week.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening to this episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We'll be back same time, same place next week with another show. Meantime, follow us on Threads, the only social media network we have. That Twitter poll and Facebook poll was done on Ben's personal accounts, not the Star Wars Underworld. We don't have accounts there. At the SWU.
I think the Star Wars Underworld accounts are basically Ben's personal accounts at this point.
I mean, no lies detected.
No lie. Social media guru over there. Yes, Dominic, thank you so much for returning to your show and the Star Wars Underworld North Annex.
Yeah, I think I'm going to need about 4 weeks off after this show. So, I'll catch you guys in October.
Oh, that's so good.
I'm wondering if I'm available for next week. I'll have to check that.
Excuse me?
I think I am. Pretty sure. But I will say, looking at the polling results coming in, all of these polls are wrong, but the one that's the least wrong is Twitter, because that's the only one where Basil is in contention, and even then, it's a distant third. But I don't know, something is wrong. Something is wrong with everybody. But no, great fun being back. A lot of fun to talk about Star Wars Outlaws. I am very excited to eventually watch a cutscene playthrough thingamajig of the game, and yes, enjoy the cuteness of Nyx, who seems to have replaced Hannah for the rest of the show. I look forward to all that, and I hope that there's a better. I hope other Star Wars shows don't suffer the same fate as the Acolyte, and I hope that there is a future in the storytelling for the Acolyte. I hope that comes along someday, although I remain majorly pessimistic that it will be anytime soon. But great fun, great show. We'll see y'all hopefully in 7 days time.
And thank you, Nyx, for hosting the show as well.
Wow, it's like Dee Baker's in the room with us.
Oh, jeez. I don't get paid enough to do this. Thank you so much. I don't get paid anything. So thank you so much for.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
just figured that out. Eh?
It's like that meme from that movie.
Yeah, you guys are getting paid.
I mean, but no, another great show. I get paid with banter and disrespect of Nyx. That's how I get paid here. But another great show. Great to be back. With all four of us here. We are the true Fantastic Four here.
Yes.
So yeah, another good one. Good times.
Yeah, baby.
Amazing. And Ben, of course, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Sorry, I just thought of the most Johnny Storm thing I could think of to say.
Jeez.
I don't think those.
Yeah, baby.
I don't think that's ever been said on this show before. I don't know.
Baby.
That was really good. That was awesome.
All right. Okay. Look, we would be remiss if we did not mention before closing up shop tonight a very happy late birthday to our good friend Mr. Chris Seekell here.
Late.
Happy birthday's in the chat, yo! Happy birthday's in the chat. Come on.
Happy birthday, Chris.
I thought you were about to sing there. Did you start to sing and decide not to?
Yeah, that was
learned from the copyright strikes we got last week.
Birthday.
Happy birthday to
We need to make a
you.
Star Wars Underworld happy birthday.
I
This is
love
what
that.
we need to do.
You could come up with one. Yeah, I will say I did listen to that part of last week's show. That was weird. That was I did.
How about we sing Happy Birthday to the tune of the Imperial March? Happy birthday, hey day, happy birthday. Happy birthday today.
I
Happy birthday.
Okay, I can see that.
Nailed it. That's what we'll do.
That's perfect. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes, thank you to all the hosts. You can follow us all on social media. Dom's at Dominic J25. Hannah's at the Raeside, Raeside. Ben is at Ben Hart with no E, and I'm at Seek3PO. Thank you everybody who super chatted with us. Did we miss super chats? Did we have super
We're
chats?
saving them for next week.
Oh, we're saving them for next week.
I'll do it next week.
Okay. Fantastic. And thanks to all our channel members. Thanks to all our subscribers on podcast apps. Please review us over there. Check out our Discord. Link is in the description. And check out all the other shows on the network. Raeside, iCount, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, Tractor Beam, and more. That is it. We are out of there until next week for... Oh, thank you for the amazing comment, Joseph, saying thanks for the fun show. All 5 of you, including Nick's, are great. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Joseph. For Dom and Hannah and Ben, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
I wasn't ready with the graphic.
Oh, great. Fantastic. This is what we get. You're gone for 6 weeks. You can't bloody get a card up on the
Shameful.
screen. You absolute baboon.
Jeez.
Wow.
Jeez. Damn.
That's how I really feel.
God. All right. Well, it's a wrap, I guess.